Now that Onslaught has been out for roughly a week, I have so many builds that I want to make, and this one I have been excited about for a while. Today we're giving some love to our Arc Warlocks and an exotic that has been super fun to use since it came out. This build gives us very high uptime on our abilities, allows us to make use of the blinding debuff from our subclass, tears through the 50 waves of adds with ease, and can also give our allies a nice buff to their abilities as well. So please subscribe, as it helps me out a ton and allows you to see more of the builds that I have coming up. Comment what you've been using, and of course like the video to show support. So let's get right into this video. Today's build is going to include the Warlock exotic Fallen Sunstar, which comes with the exotic trait Ionic Conductor. Ionic traces you create move faster and grant you additional ability energy. Nearby allies also gain ability energy when you collect an Ionic trace. With this exotic, Ionic traces move twice as fast across ground, meaning you can get the benefits of this exotic, our subclass, and even our armor mods much faster. The amount of energy we get back per Ionic trace varies between our abilities. For our melee and grenade, we get roughly 25% back, and for our roof, we'll get roughly 30% back. With the setup from our subclass, we're going to be making so many Ionic traces, so we will always have our abilities. And whenever we pick up an Ionic trace, nearby allies will also get 10% of their abilities back. And again, with us making so many Ionic traces, they will get some very nice uptime on their abilities as well, which is super helpful in Onslaught, especially when you get up into those higher waves and those targets are just meaty, they're chunky, and they have so much health, and your abilities are going to be super helpful for that. For weapons, it's going to be very similar to last week, where we're just going to go over the different loadouts I used to maximize this build. The first one we have is the one I used in the video you see in the background for all 50 waves. This includes the Buzzard. I only took this because it's the only kinetic weapon I currently have with kinetic tremors, which is an amazing perk, and I don't know why I didn't keep more kinetic tremor rolls, but when Midnight Coup comes out, when I actually have access to it and I can get it, I'm probably going to get one of those with kinetic tremors because it looks really good. I also took Indebted Kindness. This is the Arc rocket pistol from Warlord's Ruined Dungeon, and I love this thing for this build. As a matter of fact, I love this thing with any Arc build, not even just this one. Mine has beacon rounds and volt shot, so I can take advantage of those Arc debuffs, and it has tracking. And honestly, if you do not have this sidearm, I highly recommend that you find a way to get it, because this is one of the few weapons in the game that is one of those must-have weapons. For heavy, I took my Hullabaloo, the Arc wave frame grenade launcher. Mine has chain reaction and volt shot, so again, it is very good to just wipe ads with it. For the boss, I left on both my Buzzard and Indebted Kindness, but I swapped out my Hullabaloo for Thunderlord. And I know people will say that Thunderlords are not a good weapon for DPS, but for this activity, it is more than fine to chew up those bosses with. I personally think that Thunderlord is a pretty good DPS option if you don't have anything else, and I think the people who say that it's not a good DPS option are just the people that are mad when they get out DPS when they're doing their rocket Izanagi swapping, but to me that just personally sounds like a skill issue. Other loadout I used was also super fun. It included Fatebringer, which I will also swap out for Midnight Coup as soon as I can get my hands on one. I also took Cold Heart, as it plays so well into our subclass, and I kept Hullabaloo for my heavy. Both these loadouts did amazing at dealing with the adds and all the waves, but like I said before, use what you want in your loadout. After all, you're the one playing the game. Moving on to our subclass setup, this is where the magic happens. First, we're going to start with the aspect Electrostatic Mine. Defeating targets with arc abilities or defeating jolted or blinded targets create an Ionic trace. Collecting an Ionic trace makes you amplified. This will make it so all the abilities we throw out will make us an Ionic trace, which in turn will give us more ability energy because of Fallen Sunstar. Plus, the added benefit of becoming amplified will help a ton with one of our fragments and our next aspect, which is Arc Soul. Cast your rift to create an Arc Soul that fires at targets in front of you. Allies can pass through your rift to get an Arc Soul. Your rift charges faster when allies are near, while amplified, your Arc Souls are supercharged and gain increased fire rate. Arc Souls are honestly amazing, and no matter what content it is, whether you're doing Onslaught, PvE, Grandmasters, Arc Souls are just truly amazing. With this, we can sit next to the ADU or even right next to enemy spawns and have that extra damage from the Arc Souls. Plus, when they get a defeat, they count as an ability, so they can make ionic traces for us to feed Fallen Sunstar. The first fragment we're taking is going to be Spark of Beacons. While you are amplified, your Arc special weapon blows create a blinding explosion. Since we will almost constantly be amplified because of Electrostatic Mine, all of our Arc special weapons will blind. These include both Indebted Kindness and Cold Heart. I will say with Cold Heart though, the explosions seem to be better. I think it's because it's a trace rifle, but Indebted Kindness just packs a punch, and I honestly preferred using Indebted Kindness. This will give a nice added layer of control by blinding targets. It will also make another ionic trace when we defeat those blinded targets, which allows us to get more ability energy back and will allow us to just feed everything else we got going on. We're also going to take Spark of Discharge. Arc weapon final blows have a chance to create an ionic trace with a -10 to strength. This will give us the ability to have all our arc weapons make ionic traces. When we defeat a target, it will be added to like some kind of hidden counter, which will fully spawn an ionic trace when you reach that number. Easiest way to remember this is 3 miners will give us an ionic trace, 2 elites, or a single boss or mini boss will give us our ionic traces. In Onslaught, this happens very, very fast, as there are so many miners just rushing you. You kill 3 thrall, there's an ionic trace. And the cool thing is, if you're using Indebted Kindness, is it has a little bit of an explosion radius, so you have a very minor, small chance to get one of those multi-kills with just 1 bullet. Next we have Spark of Magnitude, where your lingering arc grenades, lightning grenade, pulse grenade, and storm grenade have extended duration. I originally took Spark of Ions, but I realized very quickly it didn't make much sense, so I swapped this so our grenades can lock down areas for a bit longer. I use storm grenades, but I can make a very, very good argument for running pulse grenades instead. For our final fragment, we're going to take Spark of Resistance. While surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage. While we're surrounded by 3 or more combatants, we will get 25% damage resistant, which in Onslaught we can very easily achieve. And getting that 25% bonus could mean the difference between living and going on to wave 50 or dying and going straight back to orbit. I actually found Spark of Resistance to be extremely helpful, especially when running Cold Heart, because I would get up into the spawns, make sure that I could deal that good damage, and that 25% resist was really, really nice. However, in the higher waves, it didn't always save me, so just keep that in mind when you use this. For our armor mods, we're going to start on our helmet, and we're going to take Harmonic Siphon, so our arc weapons will make us orbs to help feed us and our allies, special ammo finder, so we can have constant ammo for our special weapons for blinding targets, and ashes to acids to help get our super back faster when we defeat targets with our grenade. On arms, I have firepower, so grenades can make us orbs, and bolstering detonation, so grenades can give us class ability energy back. I also took Fastball, but that was just to fill up the random 1 energy I had left in my arms, and you do not have to take this at all. For chest, I have our resist mods, and normally I just say you can take reserves if you want, but I actually highly recommend taking arc reserves or harmonic reserves so you'll have more ammo for your Indebted Kindness and your Cold Heart. For legs, I took Elemental Charge, so all the ionic traces we make can give us stacks of armor charge. For the 2 stacks of arc weapon surge I took to increase our damage. For our bond, I have time dilation, so armor charge stacks last longer. Distribution, so we can get some energy back to all our abilities when we cast our rift, and then bomber, so we can get that little bit of extra to our grenades. There's nothing off the artifact that I'm taking advantage for this build, so we don't need to worry about that. But for stats, I prioritize recovery and discipline for rift and grenade, then resilience and intellect for the damage resistance and super energy, and then mobility and strength, as I really don't use them for this build. Overall, this build is actually really, really good, and I was kind of surprised because I was like, oh, you know what, I'll try to make it, I'll see how it works, and honestly, this build was very surprising. The hardest part for me making this build was figuring out what weapons I wanted to use. Of course, you can take things like Trinity Ghoul, but it's like, I want to be able to blind everything, hence I landed on Indebted Kindness, and I only swapped to Cold Heart after I realized that there were trace rifle surges going on. Once I found out there were trace rifle surges going on, I slapped on Cold Heart, and I honestly was very surprised. I don't know how well Cold Heart will do without those trace rifle surges, but either way, it was really good with trace rifle surges on. But with that, that is the end of our video, so subscribe if you want to keep seeing more build videos, like the video if you like this, and comment down below what you've been using yourself to get through these 50 waves of Onslaught. And I will see you guys in the next video.